Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth webinar in the series From Human Right to Water. Today's webinar differs slightly from our previous events as it is going to address the importance of engaging young people in the dialogue on water and human rights. And this topic is going to be discussed exclusively by young professionals of the WASH sector from all over the globe. Organizing this webinar, we realized that nobody could understand the importance of engaging the youth in policy and decision-making better than the young experts, activists, and water and sanitation entrepreneurs themselves. We are therefore very excited to welcome and introduce to you a range of young and brilliant experts joining us from as far apart as Mexico, the USA, South Africa, Uganda, Pakistan, Belgium, and finally Switzerland. So, why is today's topic of youth engagement so crucial? According to UNESCO, people under the age of 30 accounted for more than half of the world's population in 2012. With the drive and passion that the youth possess, they have the capability to play a fundamental role in societal change. In an era of constant technological advancements and the emergence of new platforms of communication, the ability to adapt and to innovate are some of the qualities that the youth can offer to respond to the contemporary issues surrounding water and sanitation. The global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the pressing challenges associated with climate change are examples of the urgent need to provide innovative and responsive WASH solutions to realize everyone's human right to water and sanitation, and especially address the demands of the most vulnerable groups that are often left behind. Empowering young people and providing them with access to decision-making platforms appears to remain a serious challenge, preventing them from successfully achieving their full potential. We believe young people can make a difference at several levels, from using advocacy and raising awareness to supporting innovative projects and collecting funds through platforms and campaigns. I will now pass over to my Human Right to Water colleague, Imanol, who will give us a rundown of the structure of the webinar.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our event today. The first section of this webinar will shed light on the essential role that young people are already playing as agents of change, based on the experiences of our panelists and the different projects that they're carrying out through their respective networks. In the build-up to this webinar, our team of panelists also work collaboratively to develop and finalize a declaration, reflecting our commitment to involving the youth in water governance and to respond to the most pressing challenges that we're facing today. So, the second half of our webinar will focus on discussing some of the aspects of this declaration, and will hopefully pave the way for future endeavors of the community of young people brought together today. As we are lucky to welcome quite a number of experts, there will be limited time for open questions raised by the audience. However, if you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to write them in the Q&A section so that our experts may write their responses as we go along. So without further ado, let me warmly welcome and introduce to you our first speaker, Daniel Cano. With a PhD in history from Georgetown University, Daniel is currently working as an advisor of Indigenous Affairs for the Office of the Secretary General at the Organization of American States. His work as co-founder of the Cuauhtémoc project aimed at mitigating conflicts through education in Chile exhibits his commitment to advocate for indigenous rights and environmental protection as a young professional. Today, Daniel is going to share with us his knowledge about indigenous issues and address some of the challenges surrounding environmental conservation and water rights in the American region. Welcome, Daniel. We're glad to have you today, and thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Imanol and Gussie. From here, Washington, D.C., I say good morning to everyone who is joining us in this great webinar from all around the world. Imanol introduced me very well, I thank you. And now I'll proceed to, in these 5 minutes, to share 5 points that I think are important to take into account when thinking about the issue of human rights, access to water, and indigenous people in the Americas. So I'll share with you very few slides, and here they go. Can you see them? Good. The first point is that in general, indigenous people are seen as vulnerable groups, and that's true. However, my personal point of view regarding this approach is a little bit different. When we talk about indigenous people, we have to take into account the diversity of indigenous people as a whole within the continent. Every region has their own indigenous population that has been there for different reasons, and they have migrated from different regions as well. But looking at the issue of water, I would say those who are in most vulnerable groups are those who are in geographic isolation. Especially, I've been working throughout the pandemic with groups that are based on the Amazon. The Amazon is located in Brazil, but also in other countries such as Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Suriname, and the Guyanas. They are suffering a lot due to the fact that they live geographically isolated. Therefore, the local, regional, and state authorities have problems to get to the ground and actually help them with the to go to handle the pandemic, and of course to tackle the issue of water, which is central within this problem. Also, the lack of resources, and when I say resources, it's economic resources. They don't have much money to actually buy the tools, the things that they need in order to, first, build the necessary capacities to have access to clean water, and second, to have enough resources to move around and in case of crisis, to go to urban centers and be in attendance during the pandemic. And finally, we have the challenge of indigenous languages. There are more than 100, 500 or more different languages across the whole continent, depending on which group are we talking about. So the translation, when it comes to address the issue of water, tackling the pandemic, and in addition to that, you put the lack of resources and geographic isolation, is quite a heavy problem for the authorities. So that's one of the biggest challenges. The second is the environmental issue. As you may know, we are going through a climate change crisis that is being addressed all over the world. Youth people, young people are on the front line in creating awareness and asking countries and authorities to take action to reverse that and to address it. So in particular to indigenous people, they are being highly affected because they live in places where deforestation, mining, and other industries are getting, they are polluting their environments. They are producing and extracting their natural resources, many of them respecting the laws that are supposed to be there in order to protect the indigenous people rights. But some of them don't respect those laws. And that happens usually with the complicity of local authorities, and that depends on what community are you looking at. But as a whole, I would say that the environmental issue is impacting very heavily in the indigenous population. They rely, especially in rural areas, on water to cultivate their crops and to water their animals. If they don't have access to clean water, they get their food security gets affected, their economy goes down, and finally that affects also their health, the health of their families and their communities. So that's something that we should be aware, and we should be able to help them to go through that. The third point is the role of the young people. As I said in the first point, indigenous people are vulnerable, that's correct, but not all of them. And I would none of them. They possess this spirit of resilience. They've been here in this continent before Europeans and colonizers arrived, and they are still here, uh, keeping their tradition, their culture, fighting first colonialism and then neo-colonialism. And although they have changed throughout time, that change is thanks to um, their resilience as indigenous people. In this regard, the subgroup of young indigenous people are also very modern, global, and agents of change. And they can navigate in these two worlds, in the world of a global, modern, hyper-connected world, and also in the world of the village. And because they are capable to navigate in these two worlds, they are extremely important for their communities to bring innovative and creative solutions to tackle the problems regarding water and their communities. What can we do for them is to get in contact with them first, to know their challenges, and to support them financially, and making the bridges that sometimes are more difficult for them due to the geographical isolation and lack of resources, to get in touch with people in the cities, in the banks, private sector, public sector. They are there, they have resources, they have the will to help them, and youth and young people, young indigenous people, can become the bridge that connects their villages to those sources of resources. Fourth point would be indigenous cosmovision and worldviews. I think we, at least in the Western world, are uh, too used to think that we humans are on the top of the pyramid. We are ruling this world and we feel so powerful and on top of the decisions around the environment and other societies. That was emphasized after rationalism and the Enlightenment. However, if you compare that with the worldviews of indigenous people, that is more holistic and less anthropocentric. The role of the individual is more connected to the environment, the nature. And therefore, I think there's an opportunity there to see how their tradition and their worldview, their religion, their cosmovisions interact with the role of humans in order to create better societies for human beings, the environment, and that. So we should learn from them. And again, I think young indigenous people play a pivotal role on that, on connecting the two languages of the village and the city. And finally, well, I work at the OEAS, Organization of American States. What are we doing currently in order to help indigenous people? We have the Department of Social Inclusion that wrote recently a guide of good practices for the pandemic, in which the role of water is essential, is central, and how we can, as an organization, make also the bridge and connect the needs of the villages, especially those that are more isolated, to the urban centers where all the or main of the resources are located. So they can bring the medical and technical resources to their villages and attend their people during this special time. And after the pandemic, to bring also that that knowledge, that money, and that will to help them to solve their problems. They suffer their problems on a daily basis. They, better than anyone else, know how to solve them. So what we should do, we should get to know what they need and make this connection. I like the metaphor of the bridge, to build a bridge in which the problem can be solved with our support. And again, young people, young indigenous people, they are the bridge. Many of them are acting like that bridge, and we have to help them make the bridge stronger, wider, more dynamic. That's it. I think I spoke 5 minutes or more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. If you could stop sharing your screen.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. It was really interesting to hear about some of the challenges that Indigenous communities are facing in the Americas. And I really like your metaphor of the bridge. I think that's completely relevant. And I think that young people really play a central role in crossing that bridge. So now we are very excited to introduce you to our second speaker, Antonella Vagliente. Antonella is co-founder and director of Young Water Solutions, an international NGO that supports young people in becoming water and sanitation entrepreneurs. Having started carrying out environmental projects when she was only 15 years old, to go on to become an influential leader in WASH networks, she is a prime example of how the involvement of young and dedicated individuals can have a meaningful impact. Today, Antonella will be talking a bit about her work at Young Water Solutions. Over to you, Antonella.
Thank you so much, Gussie, and thank you everyone for being here in this webinar. It's a pleasure to be sharing this moment with you. So I'm going to present in the next 5 minutes the work that we do at Young Water Solutions, empowering young people to become entrepreneurs, as Gussie said. And later then in the debate, I'll tell you a little bit more about the lessons learned and the challenges that we have encountered. So we created Young Water Solutions in 2015. We were a group of young and senior water professionals. Actually, Wasif, that is one of the panelists here as well, is one of the co-founders. And we all shared this vision that young generations, like ourselves, young people, should be having the tools, should be empowered to contribute to the solution of water and sanitation issues in our communities. We were, some of us, young professionals with concrete projects, with ideas, but without really finding the technical and the financial support that we needed to go forward with these ideas, to implement them. And this is what drove us to create Young Water Solutions in the first place, the possibility to support these young generations to really do a meaningful contribution on the ground. So I'm going to share my screen now. We, after a couple of years supporting projects and trying to understand what exactly young people needed to become water and sanitation entrepreneurs and change makers, we came up with the 3 enabling conditions that for us are the most important. And we created a program that right now is our flagship program. It's called the Young Water Fellowship, that provides training, mentorship, and seed funding to these young people that have an innovative, a creative, an impactful idea, but are missing those resources to implement that idea. And we, even if we started with a broader scope and supporting both traditional projects and social businesses, we then started focusing only in helping these young people turn their idea into a social business that could have a strategy that keeps funds flowing, keeps the impact scaling up, and also creating employment. So what do we offer these young people? Is this 1-year support package that starts actually with an outreach and the call for applications to select these entrepreneurs. We receive, they apply through an open call, and we select them based on criteria that includes impact, feasibility, potential of of their idea, social business potential, scalability, relevance, and innovation, of course. And normally we select around 10 entrepreneurs per cohort. That will be the ones that will be getting all our attention and all our support to turn that idea into a viable social business. We then invite them to this to a 2 weeks startup training. Started being longer. Now we are focusing on a 2 week startup training where we help them shape their business models and find not only and also like make them SDG proofs in a way. So we also train them on gender, for example, how to make their business gender sensitive, how to have an integrated water management perspective and as well approach in their business, and also of course how to find a model, a business model, revenue streams and so on that can allow them to work as a business. After that, they can apply for seed funding for up to 5,000 euros to do like a small test of their solution, right? So we always tell them that it's very important to fail fast and fail small if what they are doing needs improvement, if it doesn't work out entirely well. And that's why we support them to test their solutions, to share it with the community, to observe what needs to improve, and then start getting, of course, like their clients and setting up their business. And this is what the seed funding grant is for. They spend about 6 to 8 or 9 months in this process normally, and of course we provide them coaching and mentor matching during the piloting stage. At the end of the 1 year support, also support them in connecting them with other enablers, because strengthening their supported networks is as important as also getting the technical and the financial resources that they need. So these are some pictures to share with you of our trainings. We have started with global editions, and then we switched to a regional and national model. We are seeing there photos of our East African training that one of the panelists of this webinar, Sheila, she coordinates, and she's going to share something about this later. And then in the bottom, we also see some of the trainings that we did in Willisau in Switzerland with our partner Sewas, and one of our fellows from Brazil with her with the Aqualuz, the device that she created as part of her business to provide safe drinking water to families that rely on rain harvesting. So just to give you a glimpse of the kind of projects that we have supported, the entrepreneurs that we have supported, some of them are developing quite technological solutions, quite innovative solutions. And there you see Beth from Kenya, who is working on air-to-water technology. And she's providing safe drinking water in water-scarce areas. And also like to emphasize on why it's so important to test the solution. Beth, for example, she had this 50 liters machine, right? There's the one that you're seeing in the picture. And she assumed that she would be able to provide it in water scarce areas, right? She tested it with an orphanage in the outskirts of Nairobi. And there she learned that this machine works better at night, where there's more humidity in the air. And that actually the way that she was selling her business, that is for water, remote, rural communities, was probably not going to work, because she needed energy for her machine to work. And even if she had solar panels, the solar panels could be useful for during the day. But if she wants for the machine to work at night, that is when it produces most water, then she needs to use batteries, and therefore it becomes really, really expensive. So this is why we are encouraging our entrepreneurs to do like this pilot project and see what, if their assumptions are correct, or they need to change them, or they need to make, improve their prototypes and solutions. We see then Isabel from Guatemala and her Crustatec filter. So she developed a filter using shrimp shells waste to filter the dyes of the wastewater of textile industries and textile artisans that are not filtering their wastewater, and that's why the rivers in Guatemala are turning violet and purple. And then you see like another example is Jonathan from Tanzania, who is he's giving like small loans to and supporting rural families to build the latrines, and then to pay them over time as they can, and with that creating like a rotational fund to also help other families also have their latrines. So some of the initiatives that we support are more technological, some others are more basic, because we believe that both innovations and also basic services and water and sanitation are needed, and we need to support young people to provide both, right? And not only focus on innovations, but also on those that can provide a more traditional solution, like a water kiosk or the public toilets, because those are needed as well. So impact, just to finish, impact to date, we have developed 3 global editions, 1 regional edition, and we are right now implementing in West Africa, in Senegal and Ivory Coast, 2 national editions. And these are the numbers that have kind of like proved our main assumption, that is that young people have a lot of potential to contribute to SDG 6. We have had in our past calls for applications, so in these 5 past calls for applications, over 10,000 people starting to fill in the form. Not all of them submitted it at the end, but we have 10,000 people who started filling in an application form, which meant that they had an idea, or they were really like expecting to receive some sort of support to implement their ideas. We have distributed over 165,000 euros in seed funding for the pilot projects of 38 of our fellows, and that has led to an impact of about 30,000 people. So that means that if we divide both, it takes less than 20 cents for people to improve their water and sanitation conditions. So there's no doubt from our side about the potential of these young people and the demand for the support. And it's supporting young entrepreneurs with their solutions is also cost effective. You need between 10 and 15,000 euros to support the kickoff of a water and sanitation social business, and this including the training and the piloting of these initiatives. So thank you very much for listening, and then looking forward to answering some questions and to debating with you all in the next minutes.
Thank you very much, Antonella, for sharing your insightful perspective on youth engagement. Thank you also for your precious work and for using your position as a means to channel the ideas and efforts of young people and helping them become real agents of change, notably through the Young Water Fellowship. We are now lucky to introduce to you our next speaker, Muhammad Wasif Bashir Babar, joining us from Pakistan. He's a globally well-recognized youth ambassador, young human rights to water and sanitation leader, and sustainable development goals advocate. Amongst other achievements, he has successfully organized different national and international youth-related summits and has been active supporting youth projects globally. Today, he's going to highlight the importance of engaging young people in water governance and human rights, and the need to create healthy and intergenerational platforms of dialogue. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, Wasif. Over to you.
Wasif, you just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you so very much, Honorable Imanol, and I'm really so thankful to you for putting your efforts to this. Good evening to all the respected panelists. And today we are discussing about the role of youth and engagement in human rights to water and sanitation. But it is very important to know when it comes into the official platform. According to the historical point of view, on 28th July 2010 in the United Nations General Assembly, it was explicitly recognized that equal access to clean drinking water and safe sanitation and improved hygiene is basic human rights. So we just celebrated 10 years of the human rights to water and sanitation in the July 2020. So when we are going to talk about the role of youth, it is very much important that first of all, we realize that young people have the potential and they are the real change makers, and they can work in each and every situation. They have the potential to manage the problems. they have the strength and encouragement to raise their voice from local to global level. But it is very luckily that at this moment in the 8 billion population of the world, we have almost 2.1 billion population which are between 15 year to 24 year according to United Nations population survey which was held in 2019. And it is also predicted that it will increase to 1.3 billion by 2030, which is the deadline of achieving the sustainable development goals, which is also very important to understand and very important to learn. So the young people, we always talk about that they have the potential, they have the strength, but it is very concerning point when they will play their role. They will play their role when we will provide them a platform, when we will engage them, when sometime we just try to rhetoric and not take an action. We never try to involve and engage young people how they can play their role. So it is very concerning point for all of us being working in the water sector, especially for our seniors, that we need to develop the congenial and very friendly, engaging atmosphere for the young generation so that they can be in the group, they can learn and they can raise their voice, they can own the challenges of water. When they will own, it is very critical point that ownership leads to sustainability. So first of all, it is our important point that we should engage the young people in water governance. And believe me, I had been working with the young people since 2008. And it is my personal experience that the young people are very motivated, very enthusiastic, very easy to move, very easy to flex, and they are very quick learner. And they are also like a agent of change makers. And we have to involve them first of all. But the question is how we will involve them. Here problem arises because water is the business of everyone, but due to the global geopolitical system, it is also a source of conflict. At the same time, it is also a source of peace building. So let's be positive and move to take it like a source of peace building. We need to develop the young professional diplomatic relations, young professionals diplomacy, young water diplomacy program from in the country as well as in the regions. Let's suppose if I give you example of South Asia region, we have almost 2 to 3 rivers which are shared by different countries. Even if we, let me give you example of the Indus Basin. It connects Afghanistan, it connects India, it connects China, and it connects Pakistan. So water governance is very important, and we can achieve the water governance from grassroots to regional as well as global level by engaging the young people. How we will engage? It is very easy. We will have to provide the atmosphere. We will have to engage the people to develop their interest by arranging different kind of youth dialogues, different kind of workshops, different kind of exchange programs in the regions. And also nowadays it is very good that people are arranging different activities on webinars by Zooming. So we will have to utilize the platform of the information, communication, and technology to involve them. And secondly, there is a very good example of a young water solution, which just our honorable panelist Antonella just shared with all of us, that that young water fellowship program is providing the seed funding to the young people to implement their ideas on the local area, in the communities, to solve the water challenges in their communities. This is very good example. And another point, we need to engage the young people in dialogues. We have very good panelists and very good background of the peoples. But at the same time, if you remember, we have international panel on water and peace and water governance, as well as international hydrological program. We need to develop this strategic partnership with different universities, with different media institutions, with youth-based organizations, and also with the donors. Because it is, if you remember, Sustainable Development Goals 17 is developing the partnership to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So we will have to put SDG 17 on in our view, how we can create the atmosphere to engage the young people by developing the strong partnership with different institutions, with different organizations. So according to my own opinion, we will have to realize that young people, I mean, who are the most important segment of the society, of the global population, you can say that one in each 6 people is young person, that is from 15 to 24-year age. But according to the definition of different organizations, it varies. Some organizations say that youth is that person who came from the age limit of 15 year to 35. When we just enhance this bracket, it number will be increased automatically. So my honorable panelist, water governance is the most important, because for the many countries, it has become the matter of survival. It has become the matter of security, because if there is no water, there is no food, there is no education, there is no health, because water is the central point of achieving all the sustainable development goals. If we have water, we can reduce the poverty, we can achieve the sustainable development goals. Food, that is 2. We can get the health, good education, gender equality, and all the other sustainable development goals. 13, that is climate change. And if I remember, when it was a Conference of Parties 2013, and also Conference of Parties 13, and in Paris Agreement, according to Paris Agreement, it was decided that young people will be part of the dialogues in the national level and also in the regional level. But fortunately, I can give you example of Pakistan. We are fortunate that our government, our relevant ministries are trying their best to engage young people in different their dialogues based on the climate change, based on the international hydrological programs, on the water governance, and the community-based water projects. We also developed the youth strategy to how we can engage the young people in South Asia, how we can engage the young people in the global area. I mean, Global Water Partnership announced the Global Youth Engagement Strategy in 2015. And we are lucky that Pakistan Youth Parliament for Water play its important role to document this Global Youth Engagement Strategy. And again, we were the part of the developing the Youth Engagement Strategy of International Secretariat for Water, that is based in Montreal. So ladies and gentlemen, this is very important matter. Water, access to clean drinking water, access to safe sanitation, equal access to improved hygiene is the fundamental human rights. We, the young people, are a good junction of the world population, and we will have to take the ownership of this challenge. Believe me, this is not the challenge for our seniors, but this is the challenge for all of us, because we have just one planet to live. There is no other planet. This is the one planet, and we will have to play our role, how to safeguard it, how to manage it.
Wasif, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just keeping an eye on the time, and I realize that
Thank you so very much, and I have just finished. And if there is any kind of question, I am here and welcome the question and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wasif. Thank you. I certainly agree with you. The young people have a great potential to make significant change with the right enabling environment. So thank you so much for that. Just keeping an eye on the time, I'd just like to quickly remind our panelists to try and keep their presentations to 5 minutes, as we'd love to have a sort of open discussion towards the end if we do have time. I'd like to thank you again, Wasif, for also introducing us to our next panelist, who is joining us as well from Pakistan. We are very fortunate to welcome Ms. Nuzhat Bashir. Nuzhat is a youth leader and social entrepreneur in WASH, concentrating on menstruation hygiene management as a fundamental human right and a necessary step in achieving gender inclusion, integrity, and equity. Nuzhat will be sharing with us today the project that she herself initiated, shedding light on the crucial role that the new generations can play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So over to you, Nuzhat.
You need to unmute yourself, Nuzhat.
Yes, thank you so much, moderators, for the interview. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nuzhat Bashir and I am working on raising awareness on sanitation and about menstruation hygiene management. Basically, what is menstruation hygiene management? Menstruation is a vaginal bleeding that occurs as a part of women's monthly cycle, and it is related to Sustainable Development Goal 6.2, that is safe sanitation. There are a lot of challenges faced by females during menstruation. First of all, education. Menstruation can be barrier to education for many girls because of lack of sanitary pads, lack of toilet, and 2 billion people have not proper sanitation system. Lack of water, there are no privacy and no dignity. Most of the time, young girls spend their time at their house rather than to go to school. So there is a lot of educational loss. Secondly, menstruation is directly related to health. A healthy girl, child, and women are considered as the basic fundamental of healthy society. So poor menstruation makes girls vulnerable to infection. Like using a pad more than 4 hours can lead to very serious health issues like it can invade urinary tract and it results in urinary infection, painful urination, back pain, fever, and abdominal pain. And prolonged wetness can create vaginal infection and fungal infection. Some of the females that practices unhygienic methods can have to face reproductive tract infection, and these are also very serious issues related to health. Thirdly, it has become a social taboo, especially in Pakistan. Nobody wants to talk about this issue. Mothers never discuss menstruation to their daughters. Daughters never ask from them. They feel shy. There is a lot of intergenerational communication gap. And teachers never discuss to mothers, students never discuss to their friends. Nobody wants to talk about this issue. So be a young professional, I realized that this is a very important issue in our society, and I decided to raise awareness on this issue, and it is also very important issue to be discussed. Now telling you about my project that I am going to start in Pakistan. First of all, I have selected most marginalized and vulnerable community of a rural area, because in this area, people have no knowledge, no information. And so I have selected this rural area to raise awareness about menstruation. And my objectives of training will be to develop acquaintance in community among young girls and women to subject related to menstruation, encourage low-cost sanitary pads, unhygienic practices and its impact on health, and products to be used during menstruation, and last, how to manage this menstruation waste. For this, there will be training sessions for the females in which I will teach them stitching skill. Mostly females living in rural areas have the skill of stitching. On the basis of this skill of stitching, we will give them jobs, we will give them decent jobs, and there is also opportunity for those women and girls who cannot go out of their homes because of some restrictions of their family and the male family member. We will give them $1,000 and they can install a stitching unit in their own house. They can start work at their own house and they will have their own business. They will have their own source of income. When they will have their own source of income, they can equally part in the society. They can enjoy equal rights in society as men enjoy. And we can achieve SDG goal 5, that is gender equality. And we can achieve SDG goal 8, that is economic growth and decent jobs. And by females having equal rights as men have, they can equally participate in the society. We can achieve SDG goal 10, that is reducing inequality. Women will work as men work in the society. And then then I will select a village. Then I will select a village leader for the dialogue session. And on the basis of their stitching skill, I will select 10 females and give them jobs, and also opportunity for those who cannot go out for the work. And because women are the important in our society, a healthy woman can lead to a healthy society. And women are comprised of 52% of population. We cannot ignore women. They are also important, and they are the change makers. So as a young professional, I realized that I should work on this project. And I am going to start my project. We are going to start this project in Faisalabad city, because Faisalabad city is not only famous in Pakistan, but over all the world. It is famous because of its textile industries. And we will use this we will utilize this waste of industry at low cost level. And we will try to make it at national level. We will try to make partnership with other NGOs, and try to communicate with other institutes and make it possible at national level, and try to make it at global level. And because it is a global issue. And we can achieve SDG goal 17, that is partnership for the goals. So it is important to discuss on this issue, and we will work on this issue. When females also have opportunity to work in this society as men have, they can have equal right of education. We can achieve SDG goal 1, that is no poverty. Their poverty problem can be reduced. And when they will have their own source of income, they can feed themselves, they can feed their family. We can achieve SDG goal 2, that is no hunger. And menstruation is directly related to health. When their health will improve, we can achieve SDG goal 3, that is good health. Education level will increase, we can achieve SDG goal 4, that is quality education. So it is, and thank you so much. This is all from my side. Thank you for listening me.
Many thanks, Nuzhat. Many thanks. Your work is humbling and inspirational for all of us listening today, I think. And we're excited to know more about your project. We need to move fast. So from Pakistan to South Africa, we are now honored to present our next speaker, Ashton Busani Mpofu. Despite his young age, Ashton is a senior water sector analyst at Green Cape Sector Development Agency and the national lead of the South African Young Water Professionals. Having worked in the water sector for the last 6 years, Ashton will give us an insight into the South African context, notably on issues surrounding water access and inequalities. Hello, Ashton, and welcome. We're ready to listen to your presentation.
Thank you, Imanol, for the lovely introduction, and it was quite inspirational to listen to the other panelists. I love the passion, I love the energy, and I love the visionary leadership that I'm seeing through the words that are being uttered by my fellow panelists. So yes, I'm the national lead of the South African Water Professionals, which is an empowerment and a transformation platform of the Water Institute of Southern Africa, which is an NPO, non-profit organization in Southern Africa. So we are also a chapter under the International Water Association, known as IWA. So the work that we do is around empowering young people. That is mostly around soft skills, doing trainings, mentorships, and also we have a very robust entrepreneurship program, which we call Invelize, which is a partnership with our Department of Science and Innovation. I will be speaking further about this later on when it comes to partnerships. So I think just to summarize for the sake of time, the work that we do is around empowering young people and building capacity for future leaders and future workforce. So as we well know that South Africa has got a very large disparity between the rich and the poor. And we still have about 280,000 households, which is translates to about 7-8 million people that are without safe access to water and sanitation. So in terms of the percentages, we are around 79% and 80%. A very dry country, as you well know, and we recently went through the drought around 2016 in the Western Cape, which is Cape Town where I'm based. And yeah, we have had numerous droughts, and we have even declared national disaster when it comes to drought. So we are there as young people to contribute into pushing South Africa to be a water secure country. And we have done a number of collaborations, and we do a number of activities within the 9 provinces of South Africa, where we engage young people and capacitate them and start to push the country towards water security. I think with those words, let me end it here. I would have loved to add more and talk more. But yeah, I think that's what I can add now. I'm looking forward to future engagements and collaborations with the people in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ashton. Thank you so much. It's been very insightful to hear about the South African context from your very well-informed perspective. And thank you for keeping it brief. We obviously are quite tight on time, unfortunately. We now move to Uganda to hear from our next expert, Sheila Ruyondo. Sheila has built her career in a variety of roles, ranging from WASH to international education, rule of law program design, and rural public health. As Young Water Solutions East Africa local coordinator, she has founded the NGO Turikumwe, working to improve access to water and sanitation in vulnerable communities. Today, we are very excited to hear about her experience as a young leader in WASH, with a perspective on the regional issues affecting the human rights to water and sanitation. Over to you, Sheila.
Unmute. Sorry about that. Thank you, Gussie, and thank you everyone for having me today. It's a great honor to meet you all, finally. I'll quickly talk about our work as Turikumwe and also our donor being Young Water Solutions. Turikumwe is a non-government organization with a major focus on creating long-term sustainable change through an integrated approach of engaging community leaders. We have governments, we have business owners, and it also helps to identify gaps and challenges, address challenges, opportunities, develop and plan and implement progress in service provision programs. Through our work, we mainstream the rights-based approach that is very key, focusing on human rights and access to appropriate WASH facilities, but also looking at the gender approach. We have been implementing our WASH program since 2017 with funding from Young Water Solutions. And our first program targeted 2 primary schools and one health center. Briefly, in the 2 schools, we were able to construct 20,000 capacity water tanks, targeting over 1,000 beneficiaries. And we were able to renovate rainwater harvesting tanks in the health center, catering for the expectant mothers and the outpatients, especially the HIV patients and also children, and looking at other people that come to access facilities at the health center. Early in 2019, we were able to implement the Young Water Fellowship Program. My colleague Antonella has already highlighted about the program and what it provides to young entrepreneurs. And we were able to be the first to host the regional edition in East Africa. We are very proud that we were able to implement it successfully. And at the moment, the fellows that were selected for the Young Water Fellowship are still in the pilot stages, and they are yet to complete their initiatives. Briefly, also to highlight that earlier this year, we also signed another memorandum of understanding with Young Water Solutions to implement a project titled Sanitation for Valley through the commitment and actions of local women. So the project is about specifically construction of 30 latrine instances that will be catering to we have a target of over 2,000 beneficiaries that will be benefiting from these facilities. We are looking at the expectant mothers, we are looking at the children, school-going children, we are looking at the patients who are HIV positive that access the health facility, and we are looking at the neighboring households. And to be specific, they are specially designed with luxopans. This is actually something new that we are also implementing, and we are very happy that the government of Uganda, specifically the Ministry of Water and Environment, during the monitoring and evaluation sessions, were able to use our project as a model. So we are very happy, and it's also good news on our side. The luxopans are meant to keep the vectors from the ground, from interacting with the environment and the people. So it's quite environmental friendly, and they're good to be used as we target other communities. I'm going to briefly highlight on protecting marginalized groups and indigenous peoples, being today's topic. We have over 4 to 5 groups that are marginalized in Uganda. We have the Bennett, the Vatwa, the Aike, the Karamojong, and the Vasongora. And it is also very alarming that the Ugandan government does not specifically recognize them as indigenous people. But these are the people that we have in our communities and still face these inequities ranging from lack of access to wash facilities, violation of human rights, name it. Looking also next to the next point, Uganda has not adopted the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the ILO Convention 169, which also guarantees the rights of indigenous people. That is still a gap. Looking at our own constitution, the 1995 constitution does not offer protection of indigenous peoples, but Article 32 imposes a mandatory duty on the state to take affirmative measures in the favor of historically disadvantaged and so these are some of the gaps that we are looking at, and it is also the best for this presentation. Looking at the land law of 1998 and the National Environmental Statutes that we have here in Uganda, customer interests of these indigenous groups are also, not seen as we young people or any other state that is in power to really fight for the rights. However, these laws also authorize the government to exclude human activities in forests area by declaring them protected forests, but they're still traditional owned lands by these indigenous people. So they are left out and not included in these decisions undertakings. I'll give an example. The Batwa are living in Bundubujo, that is western part of Uganda. We have them in Kisoro, Kavale, that is also western part of Uganda. We also have the minority groups like the Karamojong that are living up north. These are pastoralists. Of course, there are so many wrangles and conflicts that have led to deaths, and with no access to some of these facilities that we as young leaders are trying to advocate for, we see that there's still a big gap. Just a quick one, looking at the Bennetts, who are just over 8,000 people who live in northern eastern part of Uganda. We also have the Batwa, who are about 6,700 and live mainly in the western. We're actually neighboring with them here in Fort Poto. And we also have the AK, approximately 13,939. The Karamojong are the biggest group, 988,429. And then we have the Basongora being 15,897. So you can imagine these groups of people that, have all these inequalities in the communities, ranging from lack to access to wash facilities, having the human rights violated, and looking at the main challenges of these marginalized groups and how our programs have partly been able to support some of these groups.
Sheila,
sorry?
Sheila, thank you, thank you. But we really short in time, and we need to move. So can you wrap it up in a few words?
I'll wrap it up. Sorry.
No worries,
I'll
no
move
worries.
quickly. Yeah, I'll move quickly to the role of young people in ensuring not only that Ugandan women, young women are protected, but also empowered. We are looking at increased youth engagement and participation in WASH and policy dialogues. We are also recommending that the government of Uganda to work closely more with youth organizations in supporting youth-led initiatives, and also looking at utilization of media for successful advocacy. And then lastly, we are looking at community theater exercises where we have the biggest number of youth who are working on different programs. So we have to tailor some of the issues that we are addressing as organizations to what these other youth groups are working on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Thank you very much. Thank you for your accomplishments as an organization, and listening to your regional role helps us to gain a better understanding of the challenges that you're facing. I am excited to introduce our next speaker, who is also a key member of the Human Right to Water team, Cuauhtémoc Osorno Córdova. Cuauhtémoc is a researcher in water, sanitation, public policy, and human rights, and he's a member of the Red Mexicana de Cuencas and Waterlargo Wasif network. Today, he will give us an overview of the multifaceted challenges surrounding water governance in Mexico through his work with World Youth Parliament for Water and his perspective on youth empowerment and the generation of creative solutions in water management. Cuauhtémoc, welcome, and please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for invitation on Human Right to Water, specifically Gerald, Gussie, Imanol, thank you so much. Right now I am working with different projects with different organizations, but I want to talk with you on one specifically. I want to share my slides. I think, yes, okay. So right now I am working in the World Youth Parliament for Water. It's a global project that believe in the power of ideas and the energy of the young people. Right now, the organization works around the 80 countries. For example, in Pakistan, with Mohammed Wasif, is part of the big family. The platform has 17 years to work with the young people, and it's a great platform for the promote the young empowerment in the water sector, creating new networks, international networks and local networks, and knowledge and experience to promote the local projects that the young people have in our countries or in the communities, for example. And the organization believes that we, the young people, need a special seat during the different process of decision making, specifically with the governments and the organizations that work in the water sector. Because we are solution creators, we need to be the change in the water context. And the next question is why Mexico needs a parliament national capture. So in Mexico, we have like a with water governance. Sometimes the country needs more participation of the people. And we have around 10 million people without water access. So it's so complicated because the territory is so arid. And so right now exists one paradigm that is the adult-centrism and in public policy and governmental space. But the most important is that this paradigm is part of one kind of society, and the young people, we are excluded of the different process. At the same time, exists a lack of water training for your people. It's complicated to access to the knowledge and the skills in the water sector. And and continue, there are no jobs to create experience. If we don't have a training process in our communities or with our governments, not have the experience that the jobs needs, you know. Right now, we will leave a democratic dividend. That it means that right now we are a lot of young people that we need chances, opportunities, jobs, and the country, Mexico, needs to achieve the sustainable development goals and the human rights. So this is so important for Mexico, the chance to create a national chapter for promote the solutions in my country, create networks, local networks around the country for create solutions. So I invite you that you visited the website of the project because maybe you can find a big chance to create your national chapter, create your networks, create solutions, and be part of the change in the water problems in your country. So thank you so much for the invitation, and my email, if for you have a question, I don't know, is my email. Best regards.
Thank you so much, Cuauhtémoc. Thank you. We're very lucky to have such a committed and dedicated individual on our team. It's been very interesting to hear about your work as well, and your devotion to empowering the youth. Last but certainly not least, we have our final speaker who also strongly believes in the contribution that young people can make towards the Sustainable Development Goals with the right enabling environment. We were very pleased to welcome Abishek Narayan, coordinator of Swiss Water Partnership Youth and recipient of several impressive fellowships and awards for young people. Today, Abishek will tell us a bit more about the Swiss Water Partnership Youth Initiative through a summary of their projects and the subsequent impacts that they have had. Take it away, Abishek.
Thank you very much, Gussie, and thanks everyone for joining. It's really inspiring to be here. Let me just quickly share my screen. I'm very well aware of the time, so I'll keep it as brief as possible. First, let me throw a curveball. I want to try and make it clear that young people are not the solution to human right of water or any climate-related solutions. We are not the solution. We are part of a larger solution, but we're not the only ones who can solve this in entirety. And that's really important for us to kind of embrace. Even in this panel, it's super inspiring to hear different speakers doing amazing work across the world. But it is important to know that we also cannot do it alone. And it's this intergenerational dialogue and the right enabling environment that's needed for us to be able to contribute effectively. And that's one of the first things that we consciously understood when creating Swiss Water Partnership Youth. So SWP Youth is basically sort of an organization looking at young people, and it has the support of the Swiss Water Partnership, which is the long-standing bigger organization, which is a multi-stakeholder platform for people from academia, industry, NGOs, etc., to be a part of. And this is one part of a caricature that we had as part of the young youth session at Stockholm Water Week. And this is quite important for me to also often root this whole perspective of what young people are doing across the world. Young people have two really important things, right? One is a lot of energy, and two is out-of-the-box ideas and innovations. And like Antonella said, we're not afraid to fail. If it fails, it's okay. We can still embrace it because we have less to lose. But what we don't have often is the support from both financial players or even from institutional players, which is what we need the most. And that is why we formed the Swiss Water Partnership Youth, keeping that in mind, because we wanted to create a network of intergenerational dialogue and also a network of young people to collaborate amongst themselves to make it a stronger voice. So in essence, what is Swiss Water Partnership Youth? It's basically anybody who has a connection with Switzerland, not necessarily citizenship, but even residency, or if you've been a student here, or you have some sort of connection, and you have a passion for water, and you're younger than 30 years, then you are most welcome to join us as SWP Youth members. So we are a relatively new organization. We're less than a year old. but already we have about 75 members from high schools to young professionals. I'm not going to go into detail about how we are organized, but just to make the point that for us, the central actors are the youth projects. They are the ones that we want to support. And we have formed a sort of a youth management committee, which basically coordinates these actions. And for anyone who's in the audience who's trying to listen and who's inspired by many of the panelists who spoke, if you want to create something new from ground up, apart from your energy and your ideas, what you need is a really strong team. And for me, I'm very lucky that we had really good support from different parts of Switzerland, as you can see, to come together and form this team. And that would be one piece of suggestion that I would leave to any of the panelists who are thinking of starting a youth and a bottom-up organization. We do a number of things. One of the main things is the seed funding that we give, and then we try to represent ourselves as SWP youth in various networks and even panels such as these. And like I told you earlier, we want to create this strong network among the young people who are interested in water. And finally, we're also quite interested in making these trainings and capacity development programs, because not all of them are so easily accessible. And even if they are accessible and available, they're not often, young people often are not aware about some of these trainings. So at least we want to put them on the spotlight to make sure that people can make use of these opportunities. So earlier this year, we had this call for projects, and 3 projects. One, for example, network shops is a project where we want to link young people in the universities and schools with more senior leaders in the Swiss water and development sector, so that they can get an idea of what to do to get where they want to be. Another project which is quite relevant for this webinar is a human rights advocacy platform that is going to be started in Nigeria for healthcare facilities. And that's a couple of young people from Nigeria who were part of the RWSN network who already had funds for for implementation, and we are just supporting them to kind of make this human rights platform as an advocacy tool. Another really interesting project is, for example, a video, a documentary that is being made on water injustice and how to leverage advocacy. For example, the Flint, Michigan was a very interesting example where they interviewed people and try to understand the problem from their end, so that you can use it for advocacy in these ways. So happy to give you more information as we speak, but if you want to connect, here are some options. Thank you, Gussie.
Thank you so much, Abishek. Thank you for concluding our first section with such an engaging presentation. It's been very thought-provoking to hear about all the several projects that Swiss Water Partnership Youth have been doing to improve the lives of many. So now that we've heard from all of our panelists, it is time to move on to our second section. This will revolve around the declaration that our experts have collaboratively designed on the importance of engaging youth in the dialogue on water and human rights. We did have some questions prepared for all of our panelists. However, as we are quite tight on time now, I think it would be best if we open the floor to our panelists to input their comments on the declaration as they please. I'll share my screen so that you can see the declaration, and then I will hand over to Imanol so that he can provide us with an introduction.
Okay, so as you can see, the declaration is structured into 7 main headings. So it was first necessary to identify some of the threats and objectives around which actions could be taken. Indeed, the young water community is currently facing a number of challenges in their efforts to realize the human right to water and sanitation worldwide and to effectively protect the most marginalized. So in 2020, the vulnerability of certain societal groups has become more visible in light of the importance of having access to clean water and adequate sanitation as a first barrier to prevent the spread of COVID-19, for example. And on the other hand, climate change is also described as the defining issue of our time by the UN, and we are conscious of the greater exposure of certain members of society to the worst effects of this phenomenon. So the declaration aims to establish some guiding lines and principles according to which young professionals and the youth in general can attempt to formulate solutions and design tools to make the realization of the human right to water and sanitation a priority, and to achieve SDG 6 by 2030, while always adopting a gender inclusive and intergenerational approach. So we can maybe now start an open discussion about the declaration. If our panelists have any comments to make, or they can raise their hand through the chat. We can first.
I have a point. Probably
yeah,
I can
go ahead.
Yeah. So the point on raising awareness and securing finances. For example, point 6 on securing finances, I think that's especially important, because as I said earlier, young people are ones who come with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of ideas, but what they often lack is financial support. But at the same time, what we do have plenty in the world is a lot of finances for development aid. And often the amounts that are required for piloting and testing and even making small projects is for youth-led initiatives is actually quite small. So we have this, supply incentivized, demand-driven model that we need to probably think about, because if you think about the wash and the water and sanitation services, the lack of it costs about $250 billion as cost per year globally. But at the same time, to achieve the services, you need only about $100 billion as investment every year. And a lot of money actually exists in development aid, and a lot of senior leaders that I've spoken to have always said that money is actually never a problem. It's only connecting the right people with the right projects. And that, I think, is key. And I'm quite happy that in this declaration, that's also been put as a spotlight about how to secure finance and how to connect these funding pools with the right people and the right initiatives.
Thank you, Abishek, for this very relevant point. Building on that, maybe we can turn to Antonella, and because knowing that she's a leader of a youth network in the current context of a global health crisis and the increasing need to tackle the worst effects of climate change, how difficult is it to secure funding for WASH projects specifically, as they're often not considered a priority, and what can be done to increase donations for such projects?
Thanks, Imanol. I lower my hand. So yes, actually, it's a very relevant question. I think that this pandemic has put in evidence the need for access to water and sanitation for those that still did not believe that it was a priority. Now we can see the countries that like, for example, in Argentina, in my country, when the virus got reached the informal settlements that did not have access to water and sanitation, the numbers, the cases exploded. And I think that there is going to be, I hope that there is a shift in certain budgets at the government level and also like from international organizations, like to fill in the gaps in terms of safe access to water and sanitation. The issue with donations is that the reason why we have decided to focus on social entrepreneurship and not in traditional projects that depend on grants and donations exclusively is exactly that as long as you depend on a donation, then you are always limited, right? You're always you cannot scale up as long as you don't have those funds. So taking from the private sector those tools, those are getting inspired by what works in like at a commercial level, and transferring it to the water and sanitation sector in a way that it's not about making profit and getting rich, right? It's about being sustainable. It's what for us can be one answer to how we can fund water and sanitation solutions. By that's why we are supporting these young entrepreneurs to find a business model that works, which is very challenging, especially those that are tackling access to water and sanitation, because their main customer segment is a community that cannot afford it, right? They cannot pay for those services or those products. And therefore, it is very hard not to fall on donations and to find a revenue model that helps them cover their costs and reach these beneficiaries with a sustainable business model. So I think that on one side, I mean, for increasing donations, that is also like linked to increasing awareness, and the instruments like this declaration may help. Hopefully, I think that we also need to diversify who is implementing those solutions, because there is a tendency to channel those funds to only the big organizations, right? Those that international players that have been working for decades and that are the go-to people, the go-to organizations for many banks, many donors. But there are so many local players, small organizations that are making such a difference that we also need to kind of advocate for them to get the opportunity to implement their solutions.
Thank you very much, Antonella. Thank you. Daniel, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have something to add?
My hand.
Yeah.
I would like to address the third point of your declaration regarding indigenous people. Acknowledging that the defense of human rights to water is a global fight. And I think it was Abishek that said that correctly. Young people are part of the solution. They are on the front line. I would like to add that indigenous people are also part of the solution. Their worldviews, their cosmovisions, their wisdom and knowledge is part of the solution as well. And we should listen to them. We should listen to them and learn from them on how to put ourselves as humans, as people, in a more global context where we play a role that is significant, but within a system that it goes beyond our power, beyond our control, and that comes out of their own with some tradition and an attachment with the nature. So I agree with Abishek. I support what you have added here in the third point, and I would add to that to include the worldviews of indigenous people, not only in the Americas, but across the world. They know some stuff that we should listen to and include in our creative and innovative solutions.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Indeed, like it's very inspiring what you say about indigenous peoples as being powerful agents of change, as opposed to the vulnerable status we often put them in, and the importance of young people in being the bridge, you know, between modernity and traditional knowledge. And how, a question I would maybe ask you then is, how to channel their demands of some of these young people? Like, do they use what are the tools they use to channel their demands, and how can we as a network be a platform for them to voice these demands?
You're right, Imanol. Young people have flexible minds, not like adults. We're more cynical and more reluctant to change. Young people have access, indigenous young people have access to social media, but in a more limited capacity. due to geographical isolation and lack of economic resources. How to help them to keep the bridge connecting the world of the village and the world of the public and private sector working with them, is to give them more voice and more range of action within the solutions that they have to bring into the table in order to make, again, I'm going to use the metaphor of the bridge, stronger, wider, and more dynamic.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much. Maybe I now I turn to Sheila, maybe, because what Daniel is saying also links to an issue of access to information or access to participative platforms. So my question to Sheila would be, to what extent is it a challenge for young people to access adequate education on human rights, according to her perspective or to her regional experience? And what steps can be taken to ensure an improved access to information and more transparency in decision-making and more participation? Does Sheila have anything to say about that?
Thank you so much for the question. I'd like to first by noting that in Uganda, we do not have a formal setup where people go to school and study about, the linkages of human rights to WASH or how to empower people and all the related topics that we're discussing. But it is only until at university level where people are able to specialize in these courses ranging from environment, law, and you can name it. So what I would be very key to look at is our youth our role as young people is first to engage political leaders, because first we are threats. It is known traditionally that when the old are still in power and they understand that we have issues that we want to address, it is still a threat to them, especially the decision makers. So there's always a barrier that is stopping, that is, the youth cannot access these forums or where they can have dialogues and discuss all these issues and advocate for human rights, to WASH, you can name it. But what we would also be happy to look at is provision of these tools to the youth who are able to advocate for these inequalities that we are airing at the moment, and also looking at increased youth participation through the projects that we are running. They are engaged in bottom-up planning approaches, right from the project cycle up to the end when the project is complete. So for me, I'd like to end by saying that it is very important to engage both policymakers at all levels. And as for the youth who are still, enhancing and trying to advocate for these issues, that shouldn't be a problem for us to continue advocating for them.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you. I'm obviously very conscious of time. We only have 2 minutes left, so I'm sorry that we weren't able to ask you all your questions. We obviously would have loved to welcome you all for a lot longer and hear everything else you have to say. But if there's any final comments before we go, we'd love to hear some closing remarks from any of you. Wasif, I see your hands up, and Ashton too.
So I would like to share that I totally supplement the point highlighted by Abishek, that money is not the problem. The main thing is the ideas. If there is idea, money will come back. So we need to engage young people, and we need to develop the models, success stories, so that it can be replicated in other regions, in other countries as well. So I totally agree with it. And the second point from my side, that let's try to move this momentum ahead with the flagship of Human Rights to Water organization, to develop the youth momentum and engage young people in different activities for developing their different kind of projects, different kind of entrepreneurship, startups about water and sanitation and human rights. No matter it could be from the awareness raising, from advocacy, from capacity building, or from the involving in the diplomacy as well as the political dialogues. Even at the same level from the local to global to implement such kind of clean drinking water, safe sanitation, and improved hygiene projects. So this is, and from our side, we are happy to help everything, and we will happy to offer our kind of personal and professional skills and capacity to support the human rights to water organization as well as the all the other organizations who are the panelists. So please consider us from Pakistan with all of you, and we are here to help you in everywhere to exchange our knowledge and learn from you people, and also to implement in other areas as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wasif. Thank you. Ashton, do you have something to add before we go?
Yeah, I had plenty of been listening, taking some notes, but for the sake of time, I just wanted to add that indeed money is not a problem. I would like to encourage all the young people not to be afraid to step in the political arena. One problem that we have is that most people that are in the water and sanitation space are mostly in the technical side of skills, scientists, engineers, and so forth. But at the end of the day, the decisions are being made by our politicians. So developing countries, we have got lots of budgets, we have got big monies, corruption is in, money is being wasted on other things. There's no prioritization of water and sanitation. So my one is to say, let's stand up and call on our leaders to prioritize provision of water and sanitation. And lastly, when it comes to technologies and entrepreneurship, let's try and convert these water and sanitation technologies into revenue streams as well. I mean, there's a resource recovery in wastewater and things like that to make value-added products that can make money out of it. Not to always desire money to provide, but also the technologies that can make money. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ashton. Thank you. And thank you to the rest of our panelists for joining us today. You've all brought up some very relevant and engaging perspectives, and we really look forward to working with you in the future. And thank you to our attendees for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this webinar. A recording is going to be made available on our website in the upcoming days, so we will share that with you. And we hope to join you for our next webinar next month on the business case for human rights to sanitation.
Thank you again to everyone. We hope that today's webinar are only starting points to develop new projects led by young people. So please keep an eye on our website to remain updated, and do not hesitate to contact us for further information on potential projects to come. Finally, don't forget that Global Hand Washing Day is next week, and it is the perfect occasion to spread the word and raise awareness about the importance of hand washing to prevent disease and save lives, particularly with the current threat of COVID-19. So stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye.